So having more vaccinated individuals can protect those that are not immune.
Welcome to Unleash Curiosity by Vital Pet Life.
I'm Dr. Amber De Silva, veterinarian and advocate for integrative pet care.
And I'm Donie Yamamoto, founder and CEO of Vital Pet Life. We're so glad you're here.
This is a space where curiosity, compassion, and science converge, where we explore the powerful mind-body connection that supports your pet's health and your own.
Each week, we'll dive deep into the world of pet wellness, breaking down myths, exploring ingredients, and learning from expert voices across the industry.
From nutrition and sustainability to transparency and advocacy, we're here to help you feel more confident, connected, and informed in your care choices.
So let's get into it, because when we know better, we do better. This is Unleash Curiosity.
Welcome back to Breaking It Down with Dr. Amber, where I unleash your curiosity. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Amber De Silva, DVM.
And I'm Donie Yamamoto, CEO and founder of Vital Pet Life. So, Dr. Amber, there's a recent article that talks about how some pet owners are hesitant about pet vaccines. But this is not just about animal health, but also concerns public health. Have you read that?
Yeah, I just read that article from the New York Times, and I thought it was really interesting. As you all know, I work at vaccine clinics, and so let's take a deep dive into this topic.
Yeah. Okay, how important are vaccines to our pets? I know some pet owners may be skeptical about it. What are the latest developments or concerns in pet vaccinations that owners should be aware of?
Yeah, so I personally believe that vaccines are very important to our pets' health. Deadly diseases such as parvo, rabies, distemper, and panleukopenia in cats can be almost 100% prevented with appropriate vaccination. So I do understand not wanting to quote unquote over-vaccinate. And I believe in veterinary medicine, we've adjusted our vaccine recommendations based on scientific studies showing how long immunity lasts, and then taking into consideration the lifestyle of the pet, travel, and other things.
Well, there's often a debate about pet owners about how frequently vaccination should be. Like, how many times in a year should it be given to dogs or cats? From your experience, what factors determine the ideal vaccination schedule for a pet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we know that in puppies and kittens, it's super important to get those puppy and kitten series of vaccines. Just the way that immunity works, the way that, they have antibodies from their mom, which is protecting them when they're little. But as they get older, that immunity starts to go away. And so when we start to vaccinate them, we are prompting their body to form their own immunity. So we usually start the vaccine series at 6 to 8 weeks of age, and then we boost every 3 to 4 weeks until they're 16 weeks old. So again, when they're younger than 6 weeks, they should be fully protected from those diseases as long as their mom was vaccinated and that they nursed. So they got the mom's antibodies through the milk. As they get older, those antibodies start to decrease. So with those boosters that we're giving them, they're producing their own immunity, their own protection. And they are really susceptible to diseases at that time because the mom's antibodies are going down, they're forming their own, but there's this gap where they're not fully protected from either one of those things. And so 16 weeks, it's been studied a lot. That's kind of the magic number where they've had enough boosters and as long as their immune system is healthy, they've responded appropriately and now they're fully protected from those diseases. So that's, very, very important for puppies and kittens to get that full series. Now, in adult animals, if we don't know their vaccine history, say they come into the shelter and we have no idea where they come from, what their vaccine history is, or if we know an adult dog, it's been many years or several years since they've been vaccinated, then we give them one vaccine and then we boost it a month later, 4 weeks later, so that they are fully protected. Now, most vaccines are labeled for 1 year once they get, We're not talking about the puppy series now, but we're talking about when they're
Adult.
adults. Yep.
Yeah.
So, they get let's say distemper combo vaccine that is good for a year. It's labeled for a year, but in some cases, we will stretch it out to 3 years. Now, because we've seen studies that show that typically the immunity lasts longer than 1 year. And even if it's on the label for 1 year, the companies will back up their product that, yes, the immunity lasts longer than 3 years. So this is kind of the balance you find is, do you do what's on the label because that's legally what it's recommended for? So I know that a lot of vets continue to vaccinate every year because it's labeled for 1 year. But a lot of vaccine companies have stepped up and said, okay, if you can do a 3-year protocol, and if something happens, like if they happen to get the disease, they'll back up their products. So
Yeah.
it works a lot this way in human medicine too. You try to cover your bases. You try to do what's legally appropriate, but also take into consideration the scientific studies and the coverage that you'll have if you use it in an off-label way. So I hope that all makes sense. It's a conversation to have with your own veterinarian.
Right. Yeah, some pet owners express concerns about vaccine safety and then the long-term effects in pets. How do you address fears or misconceptions, and what does the evidence say?
Yeah. So I am certainly never going to tell anyone that there are no side effects to vaccines. I never want to say that they're completely benign. Everything that we do can have side effects, no matter what it is. And so, most common side effects we see are maybe some vomiting, diarrhea, lethargy, certainly pain at the site of the injection. Sometimes we see more serious side effects like hives, swelling of the face. We can see anaphylaxis. So just like someone who's allergic to bee stings, so
Oh.
that really life-threatening anaphylaxis. I will say that's very uncommon. And in veterinary medicine, one of the most common things we do is vaccines. And we've been doing it for years and years and years. There's been like a ton of studies done on it. So we have lots and lots of data. So the most current numbers I could find were from between 2016 and 2020. And this study included over 4.6 million dogs, and
Mm-hmm.
the rate of vaccine reaction was 0.19%, or 19 dogs out of every 10,000 dogs had a reaction. And this was all kinds of reactions. It was, mild to severe, so it didn't break it into the type of reaction. But overall, 19
Mm-hmm.
dogs out of every 10,000 dogs had a reaction. Now, in the previous study, the same type of study in the early 2000s showed that it was every 38 dogs out of 10,000. So
Mm-hmm.
in 20 years, we've cut that reaction in half. And so just improved
Yeah.
technology in vaccines, refining the vaccine schedules, splitting them up, trying to decrease the risks as much as we can. We actually have cut the vaccine reaction rate in half. So I think that that's a huge improvement. That's a significant improvement that we've made.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of innovation probably when it comes to vaccination within the next
Yeah.
I mean that's 2020, so I bet the last five
Yeah.
years there's a lot.
Yeah. And
Well,
there's,
yeah.
lower doses that we can give while still getting good immunity, spacing them
Mm-hmm.
out, decreasing the risk. So let's just real quickly talk about what increases the risk. So the higher risk is small breed dogs who get multiple vaccines at once. So you have your
Mm-hmm.
little Yorkie puppy, Chihuahua, that they get like distemper, bordetella, flu, Lyme. Like, we are not giving all of those vaccines at once anymore in those small pets. So we may, do a distemper bordetella at this visit, and then we'll booster that in 4 weeks. But at the other visit, we'll do a rabies, and then another visit we'll do maybe the flu vaccine, or we'll split them up so that we're not giving 5 vaccines at one time. And that's really important.
In the article, there may be mention of or implications for herd immunity among pets and the role of vaccination in preventing outbreaks. Can you speak to how individual pet vaccinations contributes to a broader public or animal health? Are there risks when many pets go unvaccinated?
So basically, herd immunity means that if you have a high enough percentage of the population that's vaccinated, there will be less disease spread in the population. So having more vaccinated individuals can protect those that are not immune. And the more unvaccinated individuals or non-immune individuals you have in the population, the more individuals are the more unvaccinated or non-immune individuals you have in a population, the more individuals you will have that are susceptible to the disease. So, for example, for certain diseases like rabies, having populations of animals around humans that are not protected from rabies increases the risk that a human will get bitten and contract rabies. So this isn't very common in the United States, where we live. On average, 2 to 3 human deaths every year from rabies. But worldwide, there are 50 to 60,000 deaths each year. And so most of these deaths happen in areas where there's large populations of feral animals that aren't vaccinated, and they're coming into contact with humans and biting humans, and then the humans die from rabies. So,
Wow.
Individual vaccination is important to decrease the disease risk in a population.
Mm. Well, given the changes in veterinary science and evolving threats such as new viruses, like shifting environments, pet travel, and more, what should responsible pet owners plan for in terms of maintaining their pets' vaccine protection over their lifetime?
Yeah. So I've already mentioned this, but I would absolutely do the puppy and kitten series in the booster timing that we talked about earlier. And then because during puppy and kittenhood is when they're most at risk for those deadly diseases. And after that, I think it's really important to work with your own veterinarian to customize the schedule based on your lifestyle and risks. I've always practiced this way. Even though I do think I know vaccines save a lot of lives, I don't think that every animal needs every single vaccine every single year. So if you have, let's go back to that Yorkie. You have a Yorkie that goes on walks occasionally, but is mostly just in the house with the family, goes in the car on rides,
Mm-hmm.
goes to the groomer, but it's not at dog parks. It's not swimming in lakes, like you don't have to vaccinate it for probably not for several things, But if you have, let's say a hunting dog, they're coming into contact with water, they're swimming, they're hiking, they're sometimes
Hunting.
traveling to other areas. So that hunting dog is going to have a different recommendation than that little Yorkie that hardly ever leaves home. And so I think it's a personal conversation between the pet owner and their vet, and come up with recommendations for your specific situation.
Yeah. Well, that's such an insightful conversation, Dr. Amber. Vaccines can be complex topic and polarizing sometimes, but you helped made it clear. That's why staying informed and consistent is one of the best ways to protect our pets.
Yeah. Every pet is different, but what stays the same is our shared responsibility to keep them safe and healthy. And make sure you talk to your vet. Stay curious and don't hesitate to ask questions so we can learn and do better for our pets. So thank you all for tuning in to Unleashed Curiosity. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow and share our podcast where we dig into the science, stories, and heart behind pet wellness. You may also check out our website at vitalpetlife.com for more information. Together, let's keep our pets and our curiosity thriving.